Good afternoon, Richland College. Live in the place to be, KDUX studio with me, GEOFFREYMANZI. Oh my. How's that, folks?
All right, now Orlando, you jump in.
All right, that's the cipher. I kicked it off.
What's up? Hello, fellow philosophers. Okay, that's enough. I'm not
Dude,
doing
you
that.
even had a setup like, "What's up? Hello, fellows. It's me, Orlando."
Oh, that was nice. Okay.
Orlando,
He did
come
better
at me.
He did better than I did. I'm gonna stop.
If your name is
Because I
M-A-R-C.
listened to the I listened to the most recent Kanye album, so I got bars. Now.
Oh, so you got bars now.
Yeah, I
You got gospel
Jesus
bars.
Awesome.
You got
I was
Jesus.
listening to that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song
Oh,
earlier.
yeah,
So.
DJ
shout out to
Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, how about this one? I got a really good freestyle bar. Ready? You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas.
Yo, can we talk about happiness
We
now?
are the voice of Richland College. It's a disclaimer.
Well said.
All right,
Okay.
so we ready to talk about philosophy
Yeah.
of happiness now?
What is the topic? What is the topic?
Something about
How do you attain happiness?
Was that really what it was?
/ what is it?
Oh.
Yeah, that's basically it.
How would one go about
For
obtaining
me,
a sense of happiness?
I like chicken
and
wings.
what gets you there? Okay.
Jack, you put the levels really low.
So you lack food, and then food is supplied to you,
Are you getting it?
and then your brain does a little dance because that chicken wing is
Mhm.
digesting in your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's all drugs and dopamine.
So yeah, so what we're saying is get dopamine. and
Basically,
you'll be
what we're
happy.
saying, if you want to be happy, do crystal meth, do heroin, cook
The
crack
views
in your
expressed
house.
on this show do not reflect.
Go full Breaking Bad. That's the best way to do
I
it.
don't know. Is there some sort of fulfillment? Because it seems like right there, the simple things. There's always something lacking before, and then something comes, and then it seems it
Okay.
changes a mood.
Well, okay, hang
we're
on,
getting
hang on.
serious now. Okay.
Everybody's. I love that you want to dive into the conversation, but we've got segments, folks. This is a professional radio broadcast,
Award-winning.
award-winning, and you can, if you ever forget, just look straight, well, look diagonal, and you'll see our award. I'm looking at it. It's in my field of vision. I stare at it every time I think the conversation sucks. So I was just staring at it, and let's do introductions. And first, introduce the topic. The topic
Let's
is
do it.
what is happiness, and I'm excited to get to the re-quack because
Quack.
it was I would say, a very passionate philosophy club meeting on the nature of happiness. A lot of talk of misery, ironically enough.
Ooh.
But we'll get to that when we get to it. First and foremost,
Good
let's do
movie.
introductions. Freestyle your introduction. I'm joking.
Okay, now I'll do it.
No, hold up. Yo, it's me, Dusty. I participate in philosophy, but not of the common preconceptions of philosophy because I introduce new kinds of conceptions in my contraception.
Oh, wow.
I think we should abort
I
that
also
freestyle.
don't. I don't attend the club because I got
Tabletop
Work.
tabletop.
Okay, that was a bad
Okay.
idea.
He was about to rhyme club
yo.
with club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, my name is Orlando. I want to go home, not be here, because honestly, I don't like the steer. I don't know.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay, Marcus.
Not
Not a lot to overcome here.
Don't expect a cipher. Yeah, I'm Marcus. Hi.
New
Oh,
addition
that
to
was
the Philosophy
terrible.
Club Student Officer Board. Welcome,
Dubbed
Welcome,
by
Marcus.
Dubbed by Orlando. Just-
Long
Yeah.
time coming.
United.
Glad to have you. And then, of course, yeah. So we have some Philosophy Club student officers, some members. We got a couple faculty here, and we got another officer floating around who doesn't want to be on camera.
No.
She's
Hey, Dusty, put
taking
her on
pictures.
camera right quick. Go ahead. There she goes. She's behind the scenes. Like, oh,
Welcome.
Look at her.
Welcome. Well, it's her idea for us to
Awesome.
freestyle, so you can write to her if you know the content. All right, so I do want to make one quick announcement here. 3 weeks from yesterday, so on November 20th, 2019, is the DCCCD Philosophy Undergraduate Student Conference. It's, in my mind, the coolest thing that the philosophy program does every semester, where philosophy students from all 7 campuses, they come to present in a very professional conference style whatever it is they're working on philosophically. And again, you don't have to be a current philosophy student to apply for this. You could have already written something for a philosophy class, or you could just simply want to contribute as a DCCCD student. And everybody who is a student, full-time, part-time, doesn't matter, you are able to apply. So I'm going to send out the information if you want to apply for the conference to our producer engineer, Jack Fletcher. He's going to include it in the YouTube for this particular video. as well as a few subsequent ones. And yeah, like I said, it's special because the philosophy is going to be concentrated. All of the different philosophical, again, students, faculty sometimes come as well from different colleges. It's all going to be focused right here in Brazos Gallery at Richland College. It's an 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. thing. It's an all-day affair. Students coming and going. It's, again, professional attire. It's just a lot of fun to see just what is happening philosophically in the greater Dallas area. Again, a major metropolitan city here. Philosophy's... It's got to be here. It's got to be part of that, and it is. And now you can kind of see just to what extent and how far and wide it goes. So I wanted to plug that faux show. Kalen, I'm Professor Manzi. I'm the faculty advisor to Philosophy Club.
No, I'm just gonna let that for show just hang in the air and get the dead air that it deserves.
Speaking of dead air, Kalen.
Yes, alive.
No, that was hot air. I'm sorry.
Damn,
Yeah.
you got Batman.
No,
out
it
here.
is.
Awesome.
Just ask my students. Yes, speaking of which, yeah, I'm Professor Kalen Scoggins in the government department here at Richland, and I guess at this point it would be longtime contributor, I guess, or just participant / innocent bystander for the Philosophy Club Radio Hour.
Yeah, he's we can call him a co-host of sorts.
Of sorts.
Very similar to Dusty. He doesn't attend the club meetings anymore because he's too big for us now. But
Yeah.
our slowly Philosophy Club students.
I've even got my own radio show, so I don't need you guys anymore.
You know, I ran into Clive today. I was like, "Hey, I hear you're going to be on Dusty's show," and he was like, "Who?"
Yeah,
That should be pretty good. I'm joking.
That's
That didn't happen. All right. Shout out to Dusty's mom who's tuning in.
Hey, yeah, she said she likes your haircut, which I don't think you got.
I didn't get it. I didn't
You
get
got
it.
a haircut? What?
I got a mole cut. Still waiting on that gift card to what was it?
Oh, it is
Sizzler?
saltgrass. I
Solid.
think.
Saltgrass. Yeah.
The camera
not
adds a
gonna
haircut.
Thank you. So, folks, getting into happiness. Now, do you guys want to try to sort of recap, like give it the old college try here? The zigzaggy trajectory that was the conversation?
Not really, but why not?
Well, sort of, I'm just curious to this because I think we're going to come back to a lot of the points that were raised and maybe not fully fleshed out. But tell me where it went, like where it started and where it ended up.
Oh, that's
pretty
hard
crazy.
to do. I think a good way to put it is basically we went around the room, or multiple people kind of gave their own conception of what happiness is.
Yeah, which I thought was awesome.
But I think ultimately
I had that great idea.
We yeah, exactly. I think ultimately we kind of all came to the agreement that it's really dependent on the individual as to what happiness is, but although that is the case, I feel like there's some foundational characteristics of happiness and how people achieve happiness.
Yeah. Now, I liked your approach. I want to say you Orlando had the idea. Let's go around and ask everybody who's here if they want to sort of put in their 2 cents with what they think happiness is. And then we were like, well, are there any overriding similarities or differences there? And we kind of got it both, I think. Some key distinctions, as you're pointing out. It's kind of up to the individual on some level. But there did seem to be, you're picking your nose on camera, Kellen. There does seem to be some consensus as well. And I think Marcus, you were getting at some of the consensus when you're talking about love and being loved as some sort of a necessary condition for happiness, no matter how you define it.
Yeah, because it feels like love is like it's a necessary human condition for happiness. Like can happiness come from not having love? Is it necessary? Like, is love necessary for happiness to come about?
Sorry.
Is what I mean. Like in any form of love, like. When we were going around the room, I still noticed that there were all these other forms of love that people were saying about things that made them happy, but we just didn't it's not an obvious form of love. Like someone said, what makes me happy is friends and family. That's love right there. And then another person said, all that makes me happy is as long as no one else is in pain or unhappy, then I'll be happy. That's love.
What about, do you remember Professor Sullivan said?
Love.
Oh boy,
What did
you got it. He said, well, it was very, I would say, career oriented.
Oh.
He said, he loves being able to continue to learn.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing here, and pursue his his interests, his academic interests, research interests, in a way that is not just encouraged but well received. So there's some degree of success involved here. Well received by the those that he's interested in engaging with. But I think you're right, Mark. I think that's also a kind of love.
Mm-hmm. And then we also said people just want their freedom to do what they need to do and what they want. And, again, that seems to be like a love for self-attainment freedom, like, to choose your own.
All right, so have we come to a conclusion then? Happiness requires love?
I think it depends on the definition of love that we're giving here.
I really like how you're defining these like facets, Marcus. I really
Thank you.
like how
Oh.
you're attributing everything to like love in a certain degree, like a love of self, a love of freedom, a love of others, a love from others. I really like that. I have my own like personal philosophy towards happiness. I call it like kind of like a joy theory. I think I've talked about this in your class, Manzi.
A joy thing.
I make clear distinctions between joy and happiness.
That was on
I-
the board for the record. Is
Yeah.
there a distinction between happiness and joy?
I don't think you can experience happiness in the short term. I think you can only experience joy directly via events, but happiness is more like the culmination of those. When you are loved, when you meet all those like preconditions
Yeah.
to have happiness. And I also don't think you can really experience that true happiness without a tragedy. I think that you have to have like some kind of loss
Suffering.
of innocence to be. Yes, I think you absolutely have to have suffering or like a loss of innocence to be able to achieve happiness.
I like that.
Well, that got back to Marcus's point from Tuesday.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's up?
No, it's interesting. It reminds me of the Greek phrase, call no man happy until he's dead. Which sounds kind of dark, but it seems to be getting more at what Dusty was saying. That it's like, well, no, happiness is something that is kind of this summation or totality of what happens in your life. That you can't, it's like, is this person happy? Well, we'll see. We'll have to see what the totality of their life turns out to be like, and then we'll be able to know.
I've really experienced it a lot, like very personally. A lot of people will ask me if I'm happy, and like I have a lot of ups and downs. I have like a lot of let's say struggles to dog whistle for something that starts with a D and ends with session, pretty much. But
The clenching.
yeah, clenching. We'll call it that.
The tension.
The tension.
Oh, whatever. But you can't like have any kind of joy in like darker periods, but happiness is like, but in the better periods, all that you have is joy, but it's all very fleeting. Like it doesn't leave you with any happiness. And like when the next week comes, you're right back to no joy. So like I have like a baseline contentness, like just an okayness with existing and with things that are happening, and it's absolutely not happiness. I can't think of like existing like that in the long term.
So are we kind of describing happiness as something like a point that we have to reach, or is it more of a state of
Well,
mind?
I
That's
wanna-
kind of where I
so-
feel like we are not making a distinction.
I think
Thanks a lot, Mandy.
I want to say it's.
That wasn't me.
Slang us Remy.
I agree with the culmination of things. I like that because, joy. We have those moments of joy when say something great happens, and it's like, oh, it's like an immediate like rush of joy, and then happiness. It feels more like the culmination of different building blocks of circumstances that create a sense of happiness. And joy is part of those building blocks. It can
So
be.
I think this is the way I asked the
Okay.
question as well. Like, how do we distinguish then pleasure versus happiness? Like once again, I feel like pleasure is a catalyst for happiness, but is it that long-term pleasure that could be perceived as happiness?
I
see-
think that pleasure is something that you have joy in when it's there, but happiness is something that you have joy in when it's not there.
I agree.
So then you do think it is a state of mind.
I think it's both a state
Yes.
of mind and something to achieve.
Okay.
A state of
So-
mind to achieve.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or is it something to strive for? Because to say that it is a point is to say that someone can reach ultimate happiness, or to say that they will always be happy.
Is that death? I mean, think about
Is it
like,
death?
I mean,
I don't
you ain't
know.
got to worry about
It
nothing.
depends on what you follow religiously.
I guess so.
Let me ask you this:
That is true.
What is it? Is it even possible to aim at "quote unquote" happiness? Like,
I-
what is happiness?
I think there absolutely is a reason to strive towards happiness.
But,
I mean,
like,
it's
what is
it's
it?
It's what I do.
Yeah, like what, like
is it going to be different
put
for
a target
everybody?
up on the wall.
Exactly.
And that target is
Yeah.
happiness. And
Yeah.
you're trying to throw darts at it. What does the target look like?
I think it's less important what the target looks like. I think it's more important what darts you're using, because
Ooh.
that was a really good way to touch that analogy. I like that.
Don't lose it, don't lose
I'm
it.
feeling myself. But like in the long term,
Misfire.
I'm going to use myself as an anecdote here. I think of happiness like very far in the long term. Like I want to be like a dad, and just thinking about it makes me happy. I want to be like a good dad, and thinking about it makes me happy. And when I was a teacher, it was something that I felt a lot of joy in. It was something that I had joy even when I wasn't there with it. So I would say that absolutely made me happy, and I want that. And I think that if I strive towards being a teacher, that will get me closer to true happiness. So I'm using teaching kind of like as a dart to try to hit the center of the target of happiness.
Oh.
So then it seems like it is solely on the individual then, because I feel like in that position or finding the right way, it's like you have to kind of self-identify.
You
And
got to
be like-
assess yourself
yeah,
and determine
and be like-
individually what needs within you need to be met.
Yeah.
And so then
Exactly.
you have an outline with yourself of some needs that need to be met, and then you go out and do it.
And so then I guess we can ask the question here then, is everybody capable of happiness?
Yes.
So
Okay,
then
I
do you
think-
do you think everybody self-assesses to that extent?
I don't think everyone does. I think a lot of people forget to, and they just go, "Oh man, I'm sad today. Why am I sad? I don't know. Let's just continue." It's like when you ask yourself like, "Why am I sad?" and you don't know why you're sad, that's a chance for you to not be sad.
Good point.
You don't
Like-
know why you're sad, so just be like, all right, bet. It's like a change of attitude, and then you just gotta approach something with a good attitude. So I want to get into good and bad.
So I like that. Before we get into that, I
Yeah.
like that point that you made before. Then it's like it's something that's missing. It's like you're fulfilling something.
I think
And
that's a big
was
part
good,
of it.
I think that's a good point that you made there to say that, because ultimately you're identifying, okay, what is it that's missing, or what is it that I'm not doing right?
that needs to fulfill you to get a sense of ultimate like contentness, and it's
Well, can I interject real quick?
Mm.
Because I like the path you're going down, but I want to bring it back to something Dusty said earlier,
Do it.
too. And it really has to go, it's of a piece with everything we talked about on Tuesday. It sounds like, first of all, what y'all are saying is that one condition for happiness is that you have a goal that you're striving towards. Now, the goal is going to be up to you to determine whether or not it'll, again, make you feel satisfied or content, whatever the case may be. But it does seem like you need some purpose in your life in order to, and that could be trying to improve yourself. It's to identify what you need improving on, or it could be trying to become a teacher, a career goal, be a father, a family goal. And so I bring this back because, Dusty, you said sometimes you hit modes where you're just sort of like default.
Yeah.
You're kind of do you think that those times coincide with times where you don't necessarily have a clear goal that you're striving towards, or you're kind of just
I think so,
chilling?
yeah. When there's not like anything that I can easily put my mind to, it really makes it like a struggle to feel any kind of satisfaction because I'm not having any goals that I'm accomplishing. If I can't like find a project, find like a daily project to do, then I'm not getting any satisfaction from what I'm doing because I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
And kind of just to work off that, I think this is reminiscent of something that you said before, Manzi, where I feel like you were kind of referencing the self-assessing and saying that I also want to assess my goals.
Yeah.
Because my goals, I won't always find them as meaningful as I always do. And I think that's a good point. I think people often have this idea from childhood to say, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that. Or it's forced on them by their parents to say, oh, no, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. And in their mind, they idolize it. And then later on in life, they find to say, oh, well, this doesn't make me happy anymore.
Right.
I want to go off of what Manzi was saying because it reminded me of
Always a good idea.
a couple semesters, like a semester ago. When we talk about who was it that discusses how man is, he has the ability to, ascribe meaning to things and value to things, and that's the greatest.
I do say that.
Who was that?
The existentialists. So
Yeah.
Heidegger,
Nancy.
Nancy.
And Nancy. I love that, and I love that
Sartre.
attitude
Yeah.
because it to me it becomes more evident here because we start at birth. All right, are we happy at birth? Are we happy like when we're a little child? We are happy because almost we don't know what to do yet. We have no like goal yet, and so we are just loving life. You know what I mean? But then, like, when, some innocence dies and life comes into view, you start ascribing value to things in life that you have a sense of you want. There's a value. When you give something value, it has meaning to you, okay? And so as you start to grow up, those things happen where you start ascribing value and meaning to certain things, and then that creates, I think, like an outline, a little connect the dots image of your goal, okay?
Yeah.
And then your daily action, etc. And your continual applying of meaning and value to things is the connecting of the dots.
I like that. It poses the question, is it possible put it this way: if people aren't free to do that sort of thing, if people are forced to accept the values that are imposed upon them,
Dang it, man.
are they gonna? Is it possible for them to be happy?
I
was
don't.
gonna
I don't
ask
think
that.
so, 'cause
That's
they
a
don't
great
have freedom.
question.
I was gonna ask
Yeah.
that. I was gonna say we should mess with the implications of this. So then is it never going to be possible to have a uniform society or a society that's completely cohesive?
Okay, so the perfect society. What does it look like?
I don't know, but like I feel like the point that we're getting
Yeah.
at is that there will never be
Could
that.
it be? Mm.
Or a society where everybody has equal opportunity towards pursuing happiness?
Oh, okay. That's a good
Yeah, I
point.
think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, definitely.
But the
that's-
biggest part. I mean, I think it just people forget.
I think it depends on how you're going to be defining freedom at that point. Because I feel like people will be looking at freedom from different perspectives, and that's where they will
A
disagree.
lot of people have a misconception of freedom these days
That's
because
true.
we just
I
scream
mean,
it from the rooftops, yelling
Definitely.
America.
Based on our opinions
Freedom.
of it, for sure.
Yeah, I want the freedom to. I don't know.
What the freedom?
I want to drink my drink with a straw. Dang it! All right.
I've got a query to pose.
Mm.
Pose it. Poser.
Or perhaps a quandary. Is happiness achieved best through striving for a goal or accomplishing it?
Yeah, that's
Oh, wow.
that's kind of what I was.
So, like
I wanna
the
talk
act
about
of
that too.
accomplishing itself, or just the journey to
I
it.
think striving
Either.
for it is where you'll find more happiness.
I think yeah.
Because I feel often once you have that goal in mind, you just put it on this pedestal that almost seems impossible. And so once you accomplish it, it doesn't feel the way maybe you thought it might have felt.
That sounds so Western, though. I mean, think of more Eastern philosophies that say the goal is to have no goals. Because if you have no goals, then you can never be disappointed.
So like a child
then,
again.
So then what would you
Oh,
be?
that's a great
so,
point, Mark.
So are you still working towards something then? And then what if you
Yeah, that's a good
what is it
question.
that you're working towards then? Because like how we said before, the whole basis of happiness is that we're working towards something.
Well, we're operating on that idea. That
Could we
that
say
the
that-
Western
idea,
is
yeah.
working towards something, but
So-
apparently the Eastern idea is that what you want to be striving for is not doing something.
Is perfect contentment,
Yeah,
which is
contentment.
kind of what Marcus was getting at.
It's nothing
So if
like
we're saying
a
that
candle.
we're striving towards something, could we say that what we're
Yeah.
striving towards is a better version of ourselves? Because otherwise, like that's what it is in the
Yeah.
end, is a different version of ourselves within different circumstances.
But isn't that a goal in the end?
Yeah, no, but what I mean is when you put it onto yourself, that it's just a simple version of, it's a different version of you, it gives you entire control over it.
I get what
But if
you're
you
saying.
say it's something else that happiness is, and that is, what it is in the end, then it's a bit harder to
It's
find
something-
yourself there.
You're basing it completely on your individuality, I guess you could say.
Yeah, when you let the individual know that the end is them, it's still you, okay?
Mhm.
It's just a different you, and you have complete control over you. You can reach there.
But how would you exercise that?
Like I said, self-analysis.
Well,
and
I understand
then
like exercise. I mean, as to like better, but like, how do you actually put that into society? Like, how do you go about today?
talk to people.
Okay,
Tell them,
that's fair
hey
enough.
guys, why are you sad? And they go, oh, I don't know. Kind of kid stole my candy bar.
But I mean,
Here's a Snickers.
in terms of being like a citizen within society, how do you say, okay, well, I'm not gonna have goals, but essentially, I'm
Okay.
still gonna partake in society.
So
like,
I'll tell you how a society becomes better like that.
Well,
Okay?
okay.
The citizens do good to each other.
Okay.
Okay, because again, we said happiness can't come from not having love, right?
Okay.
I think that's been
But
established.
how
almost.
does that not conflict with the mundane aspects of society where people still have to do things they don't like?
Also, not
That's
every
just a normal part of. That's the suffering part. You could say you
not-
got to
not-
suffer through
not
something.
every individual's goal or happiness is found in bettering society.
Well, no,
that's-
I'm not saying
that's
they
the
have to
thing.
better society. I'm just
Well,
saying
yeah,
like
we're not saying
simple
that.
things
It's
like
just that like you're still,
it's-
whether you like it or not, you're still going to be a part of society.
Yeah,
But the
and
point is how do you
how do you as an individual also, while contributing to your own happiness, attribute to the greater good happiness of the whole? Okay, is what we're getting at. And so it's like on your journey to happiness, then
Even if that's not your goal,
we get to
though.
good. Like that's the
But
bottom line. It's
even if
doing
that's not
good.
your goal, it's still something. Whether you're doing bad or
Doing
or
good well.
it's just regardless, you're still within the society.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that how do we integrate this idea of being an individual and just completely not having any goals, and how do we integrate that into society and say, okay, well, this is what I'm working towards, or I'm not working
Brainwashing,
towards
I
anything.
guess. That's the only. That's
What the?
I
What
mean,
are you talking
buy
about?
Fox News, okay? Buy all of the TV news outlets and just start brainwashing people.
Oh,
all right?
okay.
Amen.
All
It's
right.
easier to fool people than
Marcus.
to convince them they've been fooled.
Propaganda
okay?
gang.
There we go. All
Propaganda
right.
gang.
Might as well. Let's do it.
I think something to getting back to this idea here of individuality. On the one hand, again, it seems like the pursuit of happiness is in some sense the pursuit of individuating, which is to
yeah.
say determining for yourself freely what it is that you're all about, what it is that means something to you, and then your pursuit of it is kind of where you form your personal identity. With the understanding, again, they're always free to reformulate. But again, when you look at something like the more Eastern understanding of happiness as being something called self-abnegation, which is to say what you're trying to do is eliminate everything about yourself that makes you individual so that you can become one with everything.
Realize that there is no self.
And yeah, exactly, that there is no
Look at
self
that.
ultimately.
Wait.
Dang, Jesus.
Okay. I was kind of zoned out in my own head for that last
Killed
part.
us.
I want you to
That
repeat it
was
one more time
amazing.
because I was also
Yeah.
thinking good stuff.
Well, the idea is, again, self-abnegation means that the goal is to negate everything about your individual self that makes you individual.
Okay.
The individuation is somehow keeping you from happiness. So your individual concerns,
So-
your individual pressures, your individual stresses. And so if you're able to become one with everything,
Oh, wow.
then you don't have a sense of self.
Okay.
but
It's
you
a
do-
there's a
before we get there,
selflessness
so
then.
to what extent are we? To what extent is this like? Is this humanitarian approach, or is it like what is it like
Okay.
necessary?
Well, hey, things are getting good. Do you guys want to start recording? Well, again, this idea is it kind of transcends even sort of political approaches to things. It's becoming one with nature and the sky and the
Whoa.
leaves.
I wanna-
It's all the
I
sort
wanna-
of
Versions of Buddhism.
yeah, I was gonna
Hinduism.
say Buddhism sounds very similar to.
I want to go off of what you were saying, Manzi, when you said, that the pursuit of your happiness, whatever, kind of forms your, what did you say, identity
one with
or something like
nature.
that, right?
It's in pursuing goals you've freely chosen that you
Yeah.
begin to define yourself.
Okay,
Sounds
yeah,
like
I like that
performance.
because going off of what Jean-Paul Sartre was saying, remember when he defined an evil decision and a good decision? I can't remember exactly what the good decision meant, but I know the definition of the evil decision. He said, it's a decision that leaves nothing left to be decided.
Yeah.
Do you remember what he said about good? It was
Basically, consider it like this. Evil is oppression. Evil is the relinquishing of freedom. And for Sartre in particular, we are capable of doing that to ourselves by living in bad faith. So the good decision, quote unquote, is any decision that actualizes your humanity by, again, allowing you to make decisions freely and taking full responsibility for them.
Yes, and it's also it's the difference. Another difference between good and evil that he points out is that good, because it's
So
I'm so there.
I feel like
No,
we're getting.
I hear ya.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on here.
He discusses that. Man, no, give me a second. Man.
All right, cool. Well,
No.
he's got a second.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to that individualism thing and like becoming one with nature.
Eat that mic.
Yeah,
That
that's
seems-
interesting.
Eat that
That
mic.
seems like a.
How-
or-
how-
that seems like a.
Lift
like
it up
a-
so we can see Marcus's face.
Oh yeah, of course. That seems like
Perfect.
a very a more collective ideology and also a very spiritual one.
Yeah.
One that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have if you really like. I don't know if you're like striving for something. It seems like something that you might pursue if you were like trying to. I don't know. It seems like something that's like exclusive to that religious belief system.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think
Sounds
I don't
like
think
it sounds a
it's
lot like
particularly
Buddhism and the idea
practical.
of nirvana.
Striving
you
equals
know?
suffering.
I remembered.
So,
All right, go for it.
so I
Okay,
was confused.
so he says good decision is the withholding of freedom, right? And here's another thing. In a freedom, all right, would a freedom that is most free be able to restrict its freedom in its freedom, or would a thing that is most
I think
free?
with-
That's
Without a
Jean-Luc
doubt.
Nancy.
I think
Yeah,
without a
yeah.
doubt,
Yeah, so it
Well,
would
you
be able
nailed
to
it.
restrict its freedom.
Yeah.
And then in this restricting of freedom, okay, it's you are aware of something that can be done, okay, and then you don't do it. And then that, he says, is the identity of a thing. And I love that because it's
Yeah.
like when you do anything and everything, are you something? Okay?
Yeah.
No. Well, it's like,
That's
if
a
you do
question.
anything and everything, it's like a freedom that is understanding doing anything and everything, it's everything. It's nothing. What is it, But if it does some things and doesn't do some other things, from its own initiative, then it becomes something.
That's right. You remember it really well. I'm impressed.
I know. I'm really happy with that. But and I like that because
If
that's
only could have
like
remembered it during
part.
class.
Man, it's
What'd
like,
you say?
If only you could have remembered that.
Yeah, I know.
Dang,
Only
jeez.
during the final.
Got me.
Jeez, oh my gosh.
Nah,
We're figuring
he did
it out.
great in class.
Yeah, it was good.
But yeah, I love those concepts of freedom because we talk about achieving goals and that use of your freedom and then what that means to the rest of society, and it's
So,
like avoid
I
evil.
kind of have
then
to
by-
ask you real quick.
Yeah.
So how does this attribute to happiness or rather? the
Okay. Well, I was
overall-
trying to find it there. I was trying to find the connection
Are you
by
talking
like
to me?
No, I'm talking.
I was trying to find the connection through discussing that an evil is then to be avoided. Okay, because that prevents happiness in some strains because we just said
so,
that.
so you're
it's a
saying in
restriction
seeking of happiness you should avoid evil? Is that what kind of?
Well, yeah,
getting
and
at,
seeking
or-
happiness, there's another point to be made. Avoid evil, which is like we just said, is a decision that leaves nothing left to be decided, which is easy to comprehend. It's like between two humans,
Sure.
okay? If there's a struggle between life and death, all right, but then someone finally gets killed, there's now nothing left to be decided between them. But if he had been restrained instead, okay, not killed and simply restrained, there's still something left to be said between them because he's not dead.
It sounds
So-
suspiciously close to saying that happiness is doing good and avoiding evil.
Oh, it's almost like that might be it. And
Oh
then
my
from there we
gosh.
get the perfect society
That's
because
a
everyone's doing good and avoiding
Very
evil.
classical and medieval formulation, actually.
And I'm going to push back,
You think
and it
that's
came
gonna
from
happen?
Sheldon
I
Manson.
don't know.
I'm going to push back
I don't think that's realistic.
on the Eastern side of things. Again, I mean, okay, one major strain of the idea is that desiring means that you're feeling what it is you lack, because that's why you desire it, because you don't possess it. And feeling like you lack something is pain, is suffering. So if you can get to the point where you desire nothing, then you've eliminated the conditions for the possibility of suffering.
So,
So why try?
Well,
so
in
is it
illness-
always useful to feel happy, or rather to feel this idea of freedom? Like, when it comes to progress, is happiness really
Beneficial?
Is it beneficial?
I would say
Give me
yes.
a second, based on his narrative of it, because I mean, if someone says, "Oh, why care about
okay.
science, or why care about anything else?" I'm just gonna say, "Hey,
Okay,
you know
so
what?
it's
I feel happy when I'm just doing this specific."
So it's progress versus contentment within an individual.
I guess you could say that. And I kind
Because
of want to ask Manzi because I know he.
I
has
like
something-
that because
something
Progress
delicious.
versus
I know what you
evolution?
mean.
What?
Well, because he says
out,
like
call
when you
back.
don't have goal oriented, that's the great version of happiness because you look to not have goals. But then if we don't have goals, how are we going to progress? It's almost like we don't need to progress anymore, guys. Let's just chill
Okay.
out
Manzi,
with all
say
this
something.
science stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Because I
Like,
know
Being
you're
interesting
gonna say
approach.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna pass this off to my boy Scoggins here. Do you have any
Oh,
thoughts on that?
No, don't kill me.
On what?
Don't kill me. I'm passing it off to the muscle here. So, prepare yourself.
Okay. He's gonna. Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, Orlando, rephrase your question or restate your
say it
question.
again.
Oh, I already forgot. Based on this narrative of happiness that you're kind of painting out from the Eastern perspective,
Eastern approach, staff
yeah,
navigation.
approach. So, how do we gauge progress then if we don't have essentially, like how he said, this goal-oriented idea of happiness?
and almost how we're supposed to live.
I think you could definitely twist that to being Western because it says like you're not supposed to have any goals to strive for.
Isn't that
But-
retirement?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
just about yes,
But
that's
you could- but
retirement.
but it means it
Western
as
Nirvana.
as accomplish that through spiritual realization, so that you don't like have these struggles anymore.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
I think you could like twist that to Westernization by saying achieve so many goals that you don't have any left.
Oh, I like that one.
Do
Make
like
money for
be-
everyone else.
but
Good response,
Do
Caleb.
everything.
But is that necessarily what
They're
the
going
Eastern
with it.
narrative is saying?
Oh no, absolutely not. That's why I
Well,
said I'm
so
twisting
that's
it
why
and
I'm waiting for
westernizing.
me.
Okay, so here's the thing. So in that sense, in the pursuit of all these goals to get to the end goal, we could say that's the American way. Okay, along the way,
The
there's going to
American
be
way, huh?
opportunities. Okay, that gonna get you to your next quote goal, but that in themselves will be an evil decision. Okay, because
what?
your goal would be to advance. Okay, and if your bottom line is $1, and if it means just a couple suckers out there are going to be less fortunate than you tomorrow, but you are going to get the goal that you want because you've made yourself so goal oriented. You will turn
I
a
understood what he
blind
said.
eye to
Yeah, I get
some
it.
evil decisions for the sake of it.
I ain't afraid of no goals.
Okay.
So in response to the Eastern response to the idea that
Dusty's bewildered.
the solution is not to not have goals, it is to keep achieving all your goals until there are none left.
Sounds
until you've achieved
exhausting.
all your goals, right? Well, the Eastern response would be, well, if you've already developed this habit, this mindset of pursuing goals, once you achieve all of them, you will not be able to help but think,
Oh,
all right, so is that all there is?
Now what?
So-
Yeah,
so-
and you
now
won't be
what?
happy.
What else is there?
So
And
then-
So I kind
I
of
mean, have you ever had that experience where you've achieved some
Yeah.
goal you've been going on for so long, you finally got it, and now it's like, well, is that really it? Is that all there is?
So that kind of doesn't answer my question.
Now what?
though.
The Eastern response would be,
Every
well, yeah,
morning when I
the
wake up.
problem was having goals in the
To be-
first
in the
place.
first place?
I feel like that's
So
what
then,
rich people do.
but here's the thing, so then are
that's
you
a good
saying
point, though,
then?
Marcus.
So then is that kind of saying that science is meaningless then?
Not necessarily. Again, science can help relieve suffering, and relieving suffering is the whole point of this. But it's not
Yeah.
the ultimate solution.
But in the advancement of
it can kind of asymptotically approach the limit, but never actually reach it, because the very
So-
attempt to alleviate suffering itself involves suffering.
So I think this is awesome because this is kind of reminiscent of the conversation we had. I think about what was it? About thriving and flourish. About flourishing and existing. I forgot what it was, but do you guys remember that?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And so it kind of makes me ask that then. So like, remember, Manzi, how you said that it changes dependent on the circumstance, right? So at one point, flourishing is just surviving, and then flourishing, is actually thriving. And so, if that is the case, then in this kind of this definition that we've come to, then I'm curious. Then, so in terms of survival, then would that still be the case? Would that kind of idea of happiness still be the?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was kind of precedented on this idea. I think people were referring to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing, where it's like, if you're striving to reach that initial level, then happiness and survival are probably identical, because you're seeking to thrive in a very basic way. But once you're able to sort of secure those more elementary needs, then it goes from just living to being satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. This whole idea, going back to the other side here, so to speak, I mean literally and geographically as well as philosophically, is that if you're looking for happiness, you won't find it. And so happiness is not something that you could aim a dart at and shoot as a target. Happiness is almost like it's a byproduct of living a certain kind of way.
So
happiness just becomes you.
So if
I
that
will
is the-
I will
okay.
add one extra thing here that
that was
particular conclusion is also not uniquely Eastern. The application of it is, but you find kind of echoes of this in certain, say, Western biblical passages, like he who seeks to gain his life will lose it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
that's
cool.
that idea that if you aim at this certain thing, then that's what you're going to miss.
So before we get into
has
that kind
certain
of
Orlando,
echoes
please
in
let
Western
Marcus
traditions as
talk.
well.
wait. All right. Hold on. Let me talk. All right, otherwise, I'm
Very
gonna have
different
all right,
meanings
all
and
right.
interpretations behind it, though. Again, very different. Kind of takeaways, so to speak.
That's cool. I never realized that.
So we're talking about people seeking these goals, okay, and then what were we just saying, that when they reach, anyway, when they reach those goals, okay, we always say what's next, okay, and then they find something next, okay, is because when they reach all those goals, okay, normally money kind of follows that, okay, and then they reach the end, and then they don't just chill out, they don't just live their life in a normal way. Now they do
They
what
stay hungry.
else they
Yeah.
because they have now, like you said, like they've been feeding themselves in this way forever, and
Exactly.
now they're gonna want something new,
Yeah.
something that they haven't. They're gonna cross the line to the other side and start doing things that they can get away with simply because they can, and
Or just to keep themselves entertained, to keep
Yeah.
themselves occupied,
where else was I going with that? I forgot.
as opposed to nirvana, so to speak.
So is happiness something that we? Is that the ultimate goal or not even a goal, but is that something that we should all strive for?
And again, if you even go back to somebody like Aristotle, who kind of kick-started this discussion, is this idea that, again, happiness comes from realizing the kind of thing you are, the kind of creature you are, your nature, and understanding what that kind of nature needs to flourish. And if you do those activities habitually over time, your nature will thrive. I mean, you will be being a human being
In the
as
best
well as a
way.
human. Exactly, and then happiness will just kind of happen as a byproduct.
Finding the best version of you, yeah, just like that. Yeah.
But that's very anti-existentialist, because Aristotle's saying figure out what you are essentially, figure out your essence, and that's the key to happiness. And the existentialists say it's not discovering or figuring it out, it's creating it. You get to decide for yourself the kind of thing you are. This is why I don't believe in human nature. Human nature is a very limiting concept.
Concept is a very limiting.
Concept's a very limiting concept.
But Aristotle actually shares a lot, or has some similarities with the Eastern approach in the very way that he spells that out. Because they overlap on the idea that if you aim at happiness as your primary goal, you're not going to get it.
True.
There's happiness is going to be a byproduct or a side effect of some other
Yeah.
project, we might say, or some other activity. Whether you want to, I think even describing it as a goal would be kind of question begging in favor of the Western perspective.
I think you're right about that.
But some type of activity, whether it's contemplation or meditation, the Eastern approach tends to be in a lot of strains. You mentioned nirvana earlier, Jeff. A lot of the teachings of that. Well, the key to achieving nirvana is to
Professor
realize
Manson.
that there is no difference between nirvana and samsara, or between the realm of suffering and the realm of of paradise. The way you achieve nirvana
Wow.
is to realize there's no difference between nirvana and what you're living right now.
Interesting.
I think I agree.
It's
That's
as long
a
as
great-
as
That's
long as
wild. I
as
didn't know
long
that.
as you're trying to achieve nirvana or transition from what they call samsara, the realm of suffering, the realm of everyday impermanent individual objects, to the realm of pure oneness and bliss. As long as you're trying to do that, you're never going to get it because they are like flip sides of the same coin. There's really no distinction.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Dude, that's so
The-
deep.
that was a
Yeah, that's the specifically that's the Mahayana Buddhist teaching.
That's really cool.
Shout out Mahayana Buddhism.
Nagarjuna would be the main author.
Shout out McGardner.
Yeah,
Does a great job on the flower beds.
My gardener.
No,
Nagarjuna is very influential in Mahayana Buddhism. One of the three main sects of Buddhism being Mahayana, Theravada, and Hinayana and Zen Buddhism. Sorry, four.
I feel like I want to go back to the identity thing that
Mm,
Nancy
yeah.
brought up
I
very
want to
quickly.
keep going
and
on that road,
discarded.
honestly.
I think that forming an identity and actually forming it instead of just having it, I think that is essential to happiness because it allows you to decide what actually makes you happy. Because I think that those decisions are integral to the human experience, as it were. I don't think that you can really know what makes you happy without actually defining yourself, because you find it by what you do and what you prescribe meaning to.
Yeah, and returning to Marcus's point about loss of innocence, as well as yours earlier, Dusty. I mean, the way you do that is first you're given an identity. Like you're reared in a culture, and you've already become something before you realize that you are customizable.
Yeah, I like that.
And so it's, I mean, that we're creatures of habit, we're creatures of custom, and we can change up our customs accordingly, according to, again, existentialism, according to what we perceive to be our own interests, and therein you begin to deviate from the greater collective that is a tradition that has heavily influenced you up to that point. It's what individuating is. And so I bring up the following reason. Everything that you say, I think, is spot on. It's just that process is a very, dare we say, painful one.
Yeah.
It's liberating.
Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah, I think, okay.
Like, you can't experience like true happiness without experiencing true suffering, because the two are just like samsara and nirvana. They're on they're same size,
it's
the
like-
same coin.
There's joy in the
Different size of
suffering.
coin. Yeah.
That's Camus. That's the myth of Sisyphus.
It ties in somewhere.
I mean, yeah, because I like that. I
voice
like
was that?
yeah. I totally agree with the needing to suffer as part of the human experience to properly become a human, because I like being a living thing. A living thing is capable of both suffering, and then pleasure. But so there are you immediately exist within both of them, as soon as you be, and you can be either, both or one or the other, etc. But so one has to exist with the other. Like, it can't exist without it.
Okay, yeah, I think so. And again, but that's also the point, is that it almost sounds like suffering is inescapable.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
I think that's why.
Okay.
I don't know how
Okay.
to.
Well,
Yeah,
there's our
because there's
takeaway.
no. Yeah, there you go. Suffering
Halloween.
is inevitable. That's the key to happiness, guys. Is just to understand. What if that is the key, though? It's just to understand.
What if we're just looking at it like, well,
think that's a
maybe
good
when
point.
we're suffering, it's an opportunity for us to be happy.
Yeah, like just like I said, just to understand that this suffering is natural,
life, man.
and then from that knowledge, you can extrapolate.
Or rather that,
happiness.
suffering is inevitable. And instead of getting so caught up in the tide of saying, oh, well, I'm suffering, what do I do now? Instead, you see it as, oh, you know what? I can be happier.
Yeah, like, you're not happy now, but I can be. So it's like, what do I do then?
So is it the realizing suffering is inevitable makes it possible to be happy during suffering?
Yes. I think when you are
That
in a
sounds like conceding.
situation of suffering and then you go, it's like getting over a breakup, okay? It's like, oh, she was the only one for me. It's like, well, wait, bro. Wait. This is inevitable. This was not the last chick you're ever going to meet.
Or
There's
he
more
or
fish
them.
in the sea. Yeah, there you go. Okay,
Except for
either
Manzi,
or.
that was the last chick.
Um,
Oh, jeez.
but, I think that, yeah.
no,
it's-
your mom's calling, right?
Uh,
See it, Saltgrass.
no.
Ooh, hope my dad's not listening.
Hi, Dad.
Me too.
I thought this was a great discussion. I liked where we went.
I like that concluding thought. I think there's a lot of profundity there, quite frankly. Is that the sooner you accept suffering, the more realistic you can be about what the terms of happiness,
Yeah,
or
it go-
what's required?
Yeah, it goes back to what Scoggins was saying, about just understanding that nirvana is no different than where you are already right now. So it's like, and if you're in a state of suffering, you're already there because you're human. You can do.
And then I think another conclusion was that happiness isn't something that we will look for, but rather it's a byproduct.
I agree. Because those who try to search for happiness, they always go up the wealth ladder and then they go, oh man, wait guys, listen, it's not all about money. All right, I promise you. Money won't buy you happiness, and then people don't listen to them, and then they still go after what they think is going to make them happy. So then everyone
easy to
reaches
say
the end
when
of
you
the
have
road.
money.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. I mean, those sounded like
imagine.
final thoughts.
Yeah, I agree.
Any,
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
good.
I wanted to say that I wasn't. What Scoggins was saying earlier about Nirvana and Samsara. That wasn't me directly. That was me quoting Nagarjuna,
yeah, I
basically.
get you.
But I will say that, like,
That was
if
awesome
you're
too.
going to talk about me personally, I do think that it's fascinating that both Eastern and Western traditions kind of overlap on that idea that happiness is a byproduct, and you'll miss it if you aim for it as your primary goal.
Interesting.
And so I think that is telling in a lot of ways. I think that there's a lot to that idea, and that's why it's kind of the common thread between both perspectives.
Yeah, and it's reinforced in the first point we were making that's Aristotelian, which is you don't know if somebody had a happy life. I think Aristotle says until 50 years after they die, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Because as we said earlier, the life has to be completed before you can evaluate it. But then also things might come to light about that person's life after they've been dead, or that might call into question whether or not they were really happy. So you got to wait for everything to kind of settle.
I think that's actually that's a Taoist point as well.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
in the Tao Te Ching, that point is made as well.
Interesting.
So lots of interesting commonalities.
Wow.
Man, if these are final thoughts, then we're capping off early.
It is. Yeah, we're
like
at.
usually
30
go into
minutes
like
before
4:15.
30 seconds before 4. Yeah.
Well, we're still waiting for Andre to get here, right?
I mean,
Um,
imagine him and Marcus just doing one podcast.
Orlando goes,
Two
"Stop."
sultry, hot voices going at it. Can we get that?
Tune in next time for some sultry voice action.
Can we have them like just reading Being and Nothingness?
Well, you heard it here, folks. 4 white guys in Orlando talking about Eastern philosophy. I guess that'll do it.
Yep.
Happy Halloween. Happy Samhain. Views.
Oh, I do have a plug to make.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, plug. So,
Cut his mic, Jack.
yeah. Right now, the Texas constitutional amendment election is ongoing. Early voting ends tomorrow. There are voting stations here on Richland College in the G building where the gym is. Early voting is set up from, I believe, 7 to 7 today, and then 7 to 5 tomorrow. Early voting ends tomorrow. Actual election day is Tuesday, November 5th.
That's early voting.
12 days of early voting.
7 a.m.
Yes, that too.
I gotta
Anyway.
plug. I gotta plug my own show. Fridays 2 to 3. It's history. I might have been muted. I can't tell. Fridays 2 to 3.
Shadow ban.
It's not. Yeah, I'm saying too much Nazi sympathization stuff on accident.
Oh,
That might.
okay.
That
I mean,
do
it might be it.
Oh, hey, Dusty,
Not a Nazi.
speaking of which, new hardcore history episode's out.
Yeah, I know. I saw,
Yeah.
but I don't really care about Supernova in the East, honestly.
okay.
But yeah, Fridays 2 to 3. It's me doing history. It's not your dad's history, not your mommy's history. It's real, grimy, stinky history.
The depressing kind.
The fun kind, like last time talked about Teutoburg Forest. Everyone got slaughtered. Rest in peace, my boy Quintilius Varus. And Augustus still wants those legions back. But next time, I think I might be talking about Cold War. Might be talking about Stanislav Petrov, aka the man who saved the world. And that's all I'm going to leave that.
How
one with.
intriguing.
Oh, okay. Got me on a cliffhanger.
What's the name of the program?
It's called "When the World Turned."
That's right. When the world
Every day.
Every day.
Get it? Because we rotate and stuff.
Oh, I get it. We're in heavy rotation in this station. I ain't complaining. Don't play me like PlayStation.
Oh! All right.
Thank you.
All right. There we
Views
go.
expressed. Kalen's so embarrassed to be associated with me. Views expressed in this show are my own unless otherwise stated and do not reflect the opinion of KDOX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. We should have done it. We should have done a Halloween episode. We should have dressed up. It didn't even dawn on me that we were doing this on Halloween. That would have been fun. At any rate, everybody's captivated by something on television.
Oh yeah, hold
Some
on.
news.
Sorry, it's just some Soviet stuff, and I couldn't help but admire the Soviet flag. You know.
All right. Well, who wants to sign off? Oh, okay. I'll do it.
Would that make you happy?
Think
Jeff?
about it. Think about it.